If you're one of the people who are inherently drawn to horror, then you're in real danger. I don't know what it is exactly. I don't pretend to know everything that's going on, and in fact, I, myself, used to be drawn to more realistic, non-supernatural creepypastas, but about a year ago, I was up at 3 in the morning, but part of the night where you're so deep into it that it feels like it never ends. Anyway, I was up, clicking around, looking for some good stories I hadn't run into before, really getting myself freaked out, the feeling. You like the feeling. That's the problem. Anyway, well, I'm reading and I hear a pattering sound come from the kitchen. I have a cat, so I just assumed that it was her. But then, I glance at my bed and my cat's there. And I've been freaking myself out for a while here, so I was naturally trembling with fear as I opened my bedroom door. I lived alone, in a single-bedroom apartment with just a bedroom, a kitchen, living room, and a bathroom. My bedroom door opens up to the kitchen. It was pitch black, moonlight gleaming off the linoleum. I strained my ears and I listened. I heard nothing. I abomined myself for being such a coward. It was just random house noises, right? Just a mouse on the walls. I was about to turn around and head back to my room when I heard it again. And I saw something scatter across the linoleum in the kitchen, heading for the bathroom. It was small, but it was definitely not a rat. The limbs were way too long, the torso far too high off the ground, and the way it moved, it moved quickly, but so awkwardly. In any other circumstance, I might have laughed at it. As it was, I was scared, motionless. So, I basically freeze for like 10 minutes. The size of the thing that convinced me to move. No matter how weird or messed up it was so much smaller than me, it couldn't have been that dangerous, right? So, I pop open the bathroom door. Before I turn on the light, I do a quick scan. Nothing. I flick the switch, I look around, still nothing. I look on the ceiling even. Feel the shower curtain open. Nothing. What could it have been? My mind starts inventing explanations. Definitely had 4 limbs. Maybe it was a big-ass spider had lost 4 of its legs somehow. That could explain the awkward movement, which is good enough for me. I was about to go back to bed when I thought, on a whim, to use the broom and poke behind the toilet, between the wall and the base of the seat. When I did, I hit something solid, and it scurried out. It looked like a tiny human. It was pale white, pale as a maggot. It had dirty gray streaks running along its skin. Moved on all 4s with long, thin fingers that grasped the ground. Its skull was completely bald. It had no eyes. The skin looked like it had been torn away from the lower half of its face, leaving the exposed teeth and gums. It looked up at me. Well, it pointed its face in my general direction anyway, and then it scurried, quick as hell, up the side of the bath and down into the drain. Moved at quick bursts like a spider, and it climbed straight up smooth surfaces like one too. After it disappeared down the drain, I just stood there. I was frozen. Broom handle still in my hand for a good 5 minutes. I was terrified. I slowly backed out of the bathroom. I closed the door, and then I stuffed a blanket in the crack between the floor and the door, fearing that it might come out. Then I sat in my bed and I wondered what I could do. It wasn't like I could call the police or even tell my friends. It's not like they'd believe me. So what do? I make a thread here. It's quite a while ago, almost a year. You might even remember it. Was there anything special? It didn't even get that many responses before falling off the board. A few people, I guess, thought that it was just a joke, which really, I would have thought the same thing. My thread, in retrospect, sounded exactly like the type of thread that I hate. It's people from all over giving me those responses. I've seen them too, man. Email me, along with an email address that I'm not going to give out. So I email this kid, right? Right away, he responds, and we start up a conversation in IRC. He introduces himself as John, basically tells me a very similar story. One night a few months ago, he's reading stories, he heard a noise, he got up, he saw the small pale man. He's a bit bigger, said it was the size of a cat. He also told me one other thing, that I'd be seeing more of them. Said that ever since he saw the first one, he's been seeing more and more of them, out everywhere, even on the street during the day. They were everywhere, he said, and once you noticed the first one, it got a lot easier to see all the others. He had no idea what they were. He hadn't figured out their behavior yet. He said that usually when he saw them or heard them in his own house, he was reading creepypasta stories, so they usually freaked him out, something awful. But then he said again, he'd never actually seen them do anything terrible, just scurry out of sight. But he said some got pretty big. Not all of them looked exactly the same. I still didn't sleep that night. Over the next week, and those that followed, I found that I did get used to them. I did see more of them. I'd glimpse them out of the corner of my eye. I'd see the retreating rear end of one crawling into a gutter pipe. I'd see their tiny faces staring at the street from the sewers. Some, it seemed, weren't even trying to hide. I live in Providence, Rhode Island, which is a small city. On my way to work one day, I take the bus. I was looking out the window and I saw a pretty large one, as large as a medium-sized dog trotting around the sidewalk. People were just walking by it. I think a lot of people saw it as a dog. One man stopped, scratched his head. I'd always email John to tell him about all the appearances I saw. Even tried to catch some on camera, but they always heard the mechanical whirring. They'd dart away from my camera before I could take a picture. I told myself that I'd have to take a picture of one of the bigger, slower ones. Either way, as the weeks wore on, I became more and more used to them. Sure, they were creepy as hell. I could never sit down on the toilet and enjoy a long crap anymore because I was paranoid that they'd climb up out of the bowl and bite me on the ass, but they weren't really doing anything harmful. They unnerved the hell out of me. And so did big spiders. I could live with them. John called them the Gristers because he said they reminded him of the Grister meme for some reason. I'm sure that he meant the grifter meme, but the name Grister stuck. I continued my exchanges with John. I noticed that he was becoming more and more tense. It was hard to tell over the text, but really, that was the only way to put it. I just figured that once the novelty of a shared experience had worn off, we didn't really have much to talk about. John wasn't really my type. He was a steroid-pumping bodybuilder in southern Florida who lived with his mom. But we started discussing Grister behavior, and he said that his were starting to act a bit more differently than the ones I saw. He'd wake up at night and they'd be perched at the end of his bed staring at him with their eyeless faces. They wouldn't scurry away anymore. He said that he woke up one time because one of them had actually started touching his face. That seemed unnerving. The whole time I'd been putting out inquiries on the internet to see if anyone else had experienced the phenomena. I couldn't be the only one, but no one came forward. Next, most of my threads about the subject got saged, so eventually I stopped asking. But I had an inquisitive mind. I wanted to know what these things did, what exactly they were. I wanted to capture one. I left out food and mouse traps, but none of the things ever went for it. My cat would notice them, though. She'd hiss at them, even chase them a couple of times. All those times I'd ever seen her do that, and assumed that she was just being a dumbass cat chasing at nothing. One night I was walking home from work, and I work at this call center for a police charity. My house was about 6 miles away. I'd had to stay late, so there was no bus to come pick me up. I didn't really have all that many friends, so I had to walk. Anyway, I was walking past some old abandoned brick houses. It's creepy stuff, I tell you, when I heard some weird low groan. That's when I happened to notice that there was a lot more Gristers than usual. They were mostly ignoring me, but they were scurrying in and around one particular brick house. The groaning sound seemed to be coming from the alley beside it, and now a lot of Gristers was creepy, even without the low groaning noise. What made me decide to investigate, I don't know, but maybe morbid curiosity. I'm always looking for some creepy, gory stuff to post on the board. I thought that maybe the groaning was some kind of wounded animal or something, so I approached, noting that the windows were boarded up. The groaning, I should have known then that it was no animal. It was low, it was creaking, gurgling sound. It didn't sound like any animal that I knew. So he snuck down in the alley, and when I saw what was making the noise, I nearly lost myself. It was a fat, humongous Grister, at least 8 feet wide, completely unable to move, the rolls of fat hanging down over its legs. It had no neck, just 14 chins leading up to its macabre exposed jaw. Drooling, dirty drool ran down its chin to cover its obscenely huge belly. Small Gristers crawled in and out of the rolls of its fat and rubbed itself with a pudgy claw, making that groaning, gurgling sound. It sounded almost sexual. It was terrible. I know it doesn't sound like it, and I could think that a fat, cooing Grister rubbing itself might sound pretty funny, actually, but in the presence of that thing, all I felt was a sick revulsion and disgust. But I kept in mind one thing, that I had been looking for a picture of these things, so I busted out my camera phone and I snapped a picture. I wish I hadn't. I mean, if I hadn't, maybe I could have lasted a little bit longer. The minute I snapped the picture, the thing stopped groaning and swiveled its head towards me. And all the Gristers did, in fact. They all started hissing and screaming at me. It's a horrible sound, like rusty nails on a chalkboard. I was freaking out. I to put things mildly, I just lost my shit. I ran out of there as fast as I could, ran all the way home. Gristers didn't seem so harmless to me now. The noise that they made, it was straight out of hell. I didn't feel safe with the lights off anymore. I flipped all the lights on, scaring the hell out of my napping cat. I slammed the bedroom door shut, stuffed the blanket around the cracks again. Then I sat down on my bed and I looked at the picture I had taken. And there it was. There it was, clear as day. That huge Grister, just looking at it made me feel sick. Because I was going to post it on X. I let it on my computer. I sent an image to John with the subject, "Will you look at this fat?" Then I immediately came to X and began typing up my thread, explaining myself, explaining the Gristers, explaining the photograph. I was getting ready to post when John sent me a message. "Yo, don't show this to anyone." I stopped. Replied to John, asked him what he was talking about. He said that he thought he figured out what was making the Gristers around him more hostile. He said that he thought that when they figured out that you could see them, they started getting more aggressive. He showed me scratches that he had all down his arms from them clawing at him at night. He said that he'd seen a lot more of the bigger ones hanging around his house at night. They watched him through his windows. They knew. They knew he could see them, and they didn't like it. And now I was pretty sure they knew I could see them too, so what do I do? In the end, I didn't post the picture. I was too intimidated, but it probably saved a lot of you. I didn't want to trigger anyone else into being able to see these guys if it had dangerous consequences down the road. I didn't notice any behavior changes right away. For a while, in fact, for about 2 weeks, the Gristers acted like just the same way that they had been before. I was beginning to think that John's problem was his own thing, and that the Gristers didn't know or didn't care that I could see them. And then things start happening so fast. I wake up one night and there's 4 of them just perched around my bed staring at me. I freaked the hell out. I swept them away, and they hissed that terrible noise at me, and they ran away. I emailed this to John, who hadn't talked otherwise. He didn't respond. He hadn't talked since I told him about the pictures, and even rarely before then. After 2 days, during which the Gristers began touching me in my sleep, I got an answer. John was dead. His brother had the password to his email and was letting all his internet acquaintances know he had committed suicide. He sliced open his wrists in the bathtub. John was... He didn't seem like the type to commit suicide to me. He had things with the Gristers really gotten that bad. They drove him to that. We didn't really know each other very well, but he hadn't mentioned anything to me. His brother said he hadn't left a note. I gave him my condolences. Now I had no one to talk to about this. I started looking online for references or anything. All the while, the Gristers were getting more and more aggressive. I'd look over my shoulder and there'd be 1 or 2 on the windowsill just staring at me. One time I opened the door to my apartment. I live on the 3rd floor, and there was one about the size of a large dog staggering around the bottom of the stairwell, pale face flashing in and out of the darkness, baring its teeth in a growl at me, pale limbs flashing as it bounded up the stairs, and I slammed the door shut. I didn't go to work that day. And I saw it on the news. That house, the one I seen with that fat-ass Grister, I would have skipped right past the news story had I not seen the picture of the house. Article was titled, 8 Found Dead, 3 Alive in Dungeon Raid. Apparently, some sick guy had been using the basement of one of those abandoned houses to keep women prisoner, kill them when he felt like it. It's a terrible story. One of the survivors said something that really stuck with me. We were so terrified all the time, we never knew when he was going to come in and decide to kill one of us. We were just so terrified all the time. Terrified. All the time. And Gristers had been all over that place. When I first saw one, I'd been reading stories. I'd been pretty freaked out. Same for John. So were these things just drawn to fear? And then I read 2 of the survivors had been sent to a mental hospital for hallucinations. I mean, did they see the Gristers? I stopped sleeping. I didn't want to wake up to one of those things staring at me. I stopped eating too. Whenever I wasn't at work, which was more and more often, as I called out many times when I saw Gristers that were bigger than a cat sniffing around my building for me, I was locked in my room trying to hunt for information on the internet about these things. I couldn't find anyone who had actually seen them. The Gristers were getting more violent. They were starting to scratch me. They were trying to bite me. In those few scant hours that I actually did nod off, I'd always freak out and sweep them away, and they'd just hiss at me. After about a week of this, I came home from work to find my cat dead. I quit my job. I cried for days. Man, I don't have many friends. I really loved that cat. They're not stupid. They don't talk and act differently from us, but they do have intelligence, and I went out for food last week. It was the last time that I ever go out. I was sitting at the downtown bus station, shivering, looking all around for Gristers. When the bus approached, I got up to get on. Out of nowhere, a Grister the size of a normal human just bent over, walking their weird, loping gait, slammed into the back of the woman next to me and threw her out in front of the bus. She had no chance. I saw her slide under the wheels of the bus. I saw her blood and ruined organs squeeze out of her mouth like toothpaste. Everyone freaked out and panicked as people rushed to her aid, and the Grister turned toward me and he grinned. I dropped my groceries and I screamed, running back to my house, sobbing all the way. They're toying with me. That's when I finally realized why there wasn't anyone I could talk to about Gristers. How many times when people commit suicide do you hear it reported that they were suffering from hallucinations? Or either reports of people who've been in terrible, frightening situations, like a dungeon or a war. How many of them suffer from hallucinations? Sure, a lot of them are actual hallucinations. Some of them, the Gristers. And eventually they find out that you can see them, and then they start messing with you. And I didn't think everyone who they kill is driven. I don't think John was driven to suicide. I think they're smart. I think they know how to make something look like. And you hear about it sometimes. You'll read in a report about how someone had killed themselves, but something just isn't quite right about it. Like a man who went out and bought a new car, and then he cut his wrists in it. Next, I'm convinced that there's nothing special about John and me. I don't think there's anything special about anyone who sees these things. I think you're just more likely to see them when you're really scared, since that's what they're drawn to. I can hear him right now. It's about 3 a.m. Sounds like a really big one outside of my apartment door. It sounds like it's trying to gnaw its way through the wood, and I'm so trying to take the easy way out. Okay, I'd rather have a nice sharp knife slice open my arm than have skin torn away by those teeth. So please, this is my warning to you. Stop it. Stop reading and stop listening. I know you love it. I know you love frightening yourself. You gotta stop. Every time you read it, every time you get that feeling of dread in your stomach, you're drawing the Gristers to you. And if you don't stop, at least, please, never check out those sounds in the house when you do. Hey there kids, it's me, MrCreepyPasta, and I just wanted to tell you thank you for watching tonight's video. Because this is October, I'm gonna make this nice, short, and sweet. If you'd like to help support the show or the podcast, head over to patreon.com/MrCreepyPasta. If you'd like to get yourself some new Halloween and creepypasta inspired teas, you can head over to etsy.com/shop/ivorymonocletea. And if you want to catch me, CreepsMcPasta, and Myuu during our live Halloween tour around the southern US, head over to creepypasta.shofetti.com. That's creepypasta.shofetti.com. Hang on to your hats, kids, because this year is a 31-day Halloween countdown. Happy Halloween and sweet dreams.